Single mom collapsed on her kitchen floor. Her 3-year-old twins dialed a wrong number. But when the millionaire answered, he heard something that made his heart stop. "My mama won't wake up." Griffin Calloway stared at his phone, the unfamiliar number still flashing on the screen. The small voice on the other end was trembling, barely holding together. "She's on the floor, and she won't talk to me, and I don't know what to do. Please, please help us." "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Harper." "My brother is Hudson. We're 3 years old, and my mama is sleeping on the kitchen floor, but she never sleeps there, and she won't wake up when I shake her." Griffin felt something crack open in his chest, something he didn't know existed. He was already running. "Where are you, Harper? I need you to help me find you so I can help your mama. I don't know the address. We live where the big truck makes loud noise. Mama says we live on Cedar Street. There's a broken swing across the street and a blue house with a mean dog. I'm coming to you right now. Stay on the phone with me. Don't hang up. Can you do that for me?" "Okay, but please hurry. Hudson is crying, and I'm really scared." Have you ever ignored a phone call that could have changed someone's life? Have you ever been one decision away from missing your destiny? Griffin Calloway almost didn't answer that call. It was an unknown number. He was in the middle of an $8 million acquisition. He had no time for distractions. But something made him pick up. And what he heard in those next 30 seconds would shatter his carefully controlled world and lead him straight into the most unexpected love story you've ever heard. Before we dive into this incredible journey, do me a favor. If you believe in second chances and unexpected miracles, hit that like button right now. Trust me, you're going to want to stick with me on this one, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Rosalie Brooks woke up at 4:47 in the morning to the sound of her own racing heart. 3 hours of sleep. That's all she'd managed. Again, she lay there in the darkness of her tiny bedroom, staring at the ceiling with its water stain that looked like a map of somewhere better, somewhere she'd never get to go. Her body ached in that deep bone way that comes from exhaustion that never ends. But lying in bed was a luxury she couldn't afford. She had exactly 43 minutes before she needed to wake Harper and Hudson for their day. 43 minutes to pretend she was strong enough to keep doing this. She pulled herself up, every muscle protesting. The apartment was cold. The heat had been acting up again, but calling the landlord meant risking attention she couldn't afford. Not when she was 2 weeks late on rent. Not when the eviction notice was hidden under a stack of magazines on the kitchen counter where her babies wouldn't see it. The math ran through her head like it did every morning. Rent was $1,247. She had $89 in her bank account. The rent increase notice that came last month said starting next month, it would be $1,587. The numbers didn't work. They never worked. But somehow, she kept making them work because the alternative was unthinkable. For jobs. She was juggling 4 jobs. Night cleaning at the Meridian office building from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Weekend waitressing at Dolores Diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. Weekday stocking at Morrison's Grocery from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. before the twins woke up. And Thursday evening babysitting for the Chin family because they paid cash and didn't ask questions. She moved quietly through the apartment, not wanting to wake Harper and Hudson yet. In the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator and felt the familiar weight settle on her chest. 1 egg carton with 2 eggs left. A nearly empty gallon of milk. 3 condiment bottles. A wilted head of lettuce she'd salvaged from the discount bin. That was it. That was everything until her grocery store paycheck hit tomorrow. If it hit tomorrow. Sometimes the direct deposit was late. 2 eggs. 3 people. The arithmetic of poverty. She'd give them each half an egg, scrambled, with a slice of the bread she'd been rationing. She'd tell them she already ate. She was getting good at lying to her children. That skill had developed somewhere between desperation and survival, and she hated herself a little more each time she used it. Rosalie caught her reflection in the toaster while she waited for it to heat up. She barely recognized herself anymore. Her face was gaunt, cheekbones too prominent. Her dark auburn hair, once thick and shiny, hung limp around her shoulders. The warm brown of her eyes had taken on a hollow quality. She was 26 years old and she looked 40. She looked exactly like what she was. Beaten down, used up, barely holding on. But she was holding on. For them. Always for them. The photograph on the refrigerator mocked her with its happiness. Rosalie at 22, pregnant and glowing, her hand resting on her swollen belly. Jerome standing behind her, his arms wrapped around her, both of them smiling like they knew something the rest of the world didn't. They'd been so sure, so stupidly, innocently sure that love would be enough, that becoming parents would make them stronger, that their little family would beat the odds. Jerome had lasted 6 months after the twins were born. 6 months of sleepless nights and crying babies, and the reality that 2 infants were harder than 1 pregnancy. He'd left on a Tuesday morning, kissed her forehead, and said he was going to the store for diapers. That was 4 years ago. She still remembered standing in the doorway with a baby on each hip, watching his car disappear around the corner, somehow knowing he wasn't coming back. He sent money sometimes. $50 here, $100 there, always with a note that said sorry. As if sorry paid for childcare. As if sorry kept the lights on. Rosalie shook off the memory. No time for that. No energy for bitterness. She cracked the 2 eggs into a bowl and scrambled them slowly, making them look like more than they were. A trick she'd learned. If you scrambled them enough, added a tiny bit of the milk, they fluffed up and looked almost generous split between 2 small plates. The bread was stale, but she didn't have butter to toast it properly. She put the slices on the plates anyway. Presentation mattered. She wanted her children to sit down to a meal that looked intentional, not desperate. Mama's babies deserved that much. She was reaching for the frying pan when it happened. The world tilted, just slightly at first, like the floor had shifted beneath her feet. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. This had been happening more frequently. Dizzy spells. Moments where her vision blurred at the edges and her head felt too light, like it might float away from her body. You're fine, she told herself. You're just tired. You just need to eat something. But there was nothing to eat. Not until the twins had their breakfast. Not until tomorrow's paycheck. She could wait. She'd waited before. Rosalie reached for the pan again. The kitchen swam in her vision. Her hand missed the handle. The room tilted harder this time, no longer gentle, and she felt her legs give out underneath her. She had just enough time to think. Not now. Please not now. Before the floor rushed up to meet her and everything went dark. She didn't hear Harper wake up. Didn't hear her daughter's small footsteps padding into the kitchen. Didn't hear the sharp intake of breath when Harper saw her mama lying on the cold linoleum floor. Mama? Harper's voice was small, uncertain. She stood in the doorway in her princess pajamas, the ones with the holes in the knees that Rosalie kept meaning to patch. Hudson appeared behind her, clutching Mr. Buttons, the stuffed bear that went everywhere with him. His thumb was already in his mouth, a habit that came back when he was scared. Mama, wake up. Harper moved closer, her bare feet silent on the floor. Mama, it's morning. You're supposed to make breakfast. Rosalie didn't move. Her chest rose and fell, barely, but to 3-year-old eyes, she just looked wrong. All wrong. Mama never slept on the floor. Mama never ignored them when they called her name. Harper felt something cold settle in her stomach. She'd felt this feeling before, once, when Hudson had fallen at the playground and cut his head, and there was blood everywhere, and Mama had gone very still and quiet and scary calm. This was that same feeling. The feeling that something was very, very bad. She knelt beside her mother and put her small hand on Rosalie's arm. Mama was cold. Too cold. Mama, please. Harper's voice cracked. Please wake up. I'm sorry if we were bad. Please wake up. Hudson started crying. Not the loud crying he did when he was mad about sharing toys, but the quiet, hiccuping crying that meant he was really scared. Harper looked at her brother, looked at her mama on the floor, and felt her own tears start to fall. But then she remembered. She remembered what Mama had taught them. She remembered the lesson from 2 weeks ago when Mama had sat them down very seriously and made them practice. If something bad happens and Mama can't help you, what do? We call 911, Harper had recited. That's right, baby. You call 911 and you tell them you need help. Can you remember that? 911. Harper had nodded. Hudson had nodded. They'd practiced on Mama's old phone, the one that didn't work for calls anymore. They pretended to dial the numbers. Mama had pretended to be the emergency person. What's your emergency? My mama needs help. That's perfect, sweethearts. You're so smart. Mama is so proud of you. Harper wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She had to be brave. She had to help Mama. That's what big sisters did, even if she was only 3 minutes older than Hudson. Stay here with Mama. She told her brother in the most grown-up voice she could manage. I'm going to get help. The kitchen chair was heavy, but Harper was determined. She dragged it across the floor, the legs making a horrible scraping sound that hurt her ears. She climbed up on the seat, then onto the counter, her heart pounding. Mama would be mad about her climbing on the counter. Mama always said it was dangerous. But this was an emergency, and emergencies had different rules. The phone was mounted on the wall, one of those old cordless ones that was supposed to stay in the charging base. Harper's hands were shaking so badly, she almost dropped it. She pressed the button and heard the dial tone. The sound Mama said meant the phone was ready. 911. She had to dial 911. Harper looked at the numbers. She knew her numbers. She was very good at numbers. Mama had been teaching them. 9 was the one in the corner. 1 was next to 2. She pressed 9. Her finger was shaking. She pressed 1. Then her finger slipped. She pressed 4. No, wait, that was wrong. She pressed 3. More numbers. The phone was beeping at her. She put it to her ear. It was ringing. That was good, right? Ringing meant someone would answer. It rang. And rang. And rang. Hello? The voice was deep. Male. Kind of impatient sounding. Harper's practiced words flew out of her head. This didn't sound like the nice lady Mama had pretended to be. This sounded like a stranger. And Mama said never talk to strangers. But Mama was on the floor, and this was an emergency, and emergencies had different rules. My mama won't wake up. The words tumbled out in a rush, her voice high and scared and nothing like the brave voice she'd used with Hudson. She's on the floor, and she won't talk to me, and I don't know what to do. Please, please help us. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Harper heard papers rustling. Then the voice came back, different now. Focused. Urgent. Sweetheart, what's your name? Harper. My brother is Hudson. We're 3 years old, and my mama is sleeping on the kitchen floor, but she never sleeps there, and she won't wake up when I shake her. Okay, Harper, listen to me very carefully. You are being so brave right now. I'm going to help you and your mama, but I need you to help me first. Can you do that? Harper nodded, then remembered he couldn't see her. Yes. Is your mama breathing? Is her tummy moving up and down? Harper climbed down from the counter and ran to her mother. She watched carefully. Mama's stomach did move, just a little bit. Yes, a little bit. Good. That's very good. Now, Harper, I need you to tell me where you live so I can come help your mama. I don't know. Harper felt panic rising again. She didn't know the address. Mama had told her once, but it was big words and numbers, and she couldn't remember. That's okay. That's okay. Can you tell me what you see outside your window? Harper ran to the living room window and looked out. There's a broken swing. At the park across the street. And a blue house with a dog that barks at us. And big trucks that come in the morning and make really loud noises. What kind of trucks? The ones that take trash. Mama says they come too early. The voice sounded like it was moving now. Harper heard car sounds. Harper, is there a street name you know? Like the sign on the corner? Cedar something. Mama says we live on Cedar something. Cedar Grove? Maybe? I don't know. It's okay. You're doing great. The blue house with the dog. Is it next to your building or across the street? Next to us. It's scary. The dog is really big. And the broken swing. What color is the park equipment? Red. And yellow. But the slide is broken. Mama says we can't play on it. Griffin's mind was racing, pulling up maps on his phone while keeping Harper talking. Cedar Grove. South side. Rundown area. Park with broken red and yellow equipment. He knew exactly where that was. Harper, I'm coming to you right now. I'm in my car, and I'm driving as fast as I can. Stay on the phone with me, okay? Don't hang up. I want to hear your voice the whole time. Can you tell me about your brother? Hudson is sad. He wants Mama to wake up. He's hugging his bear. His bear is named Mr. Buttons because he has button eyes. That's a very good name for a bear. What color is Mr. Buttons? Brown. But one of his ears is falling off. Mama is going to fix it, but she's been really tired. What's your favorite thing to do with your mama? Harper's voice got quieter. She sings to us. At bedtime. She sings the moon song. She says the moon watches over us when she has to go to work. Your mama sounds wonderful. She is wonderful. She's the best mama. But she's really tired all the time. She works a lot. She says she's making things better for us. Griffin felt his throat tighten. He was breaking every traffic law, running red lights, weaving between cars. Let them give him tickets. Let them arrest him. This little girl needed help, and nothing else mattered. Harper, I can see your street now. I'm almost there. Do you live in a big building with lots of apartments? Yes. With stairs. Lots of stairs. Mama says we live on the second floor. What number is on your door? 2F. Perfect. I'm here, Harper. I'm the tall man in the dark coat walking up the stairs right now. Can you open the door for me? Inside the apartment, Harper looked at the door with all its locks. Chain lock up high. Dead bolt in the middle. Doorknob lock at the bottom. She could reach the bottom too, but not the chain. I can't reach the top one. That's okay, sweetheart. Can you unlock the bottom two for me? Harper dragged the chair to the door. She unlocked the knob lock, stretched up on her tiptoes, and managed to turn the deadbolt. The chain was still too high. I can't get the chain. Step away from the door, Harper. Go sit with your brother and your mama. I'm going to come in now. Griffin looked at the flimsy apartment door. Old. Cheap. The chain lock wouldn't hold against any real force. He'd pay for repairs later. Right now, a child needed him. He put his shoulder against the door and pushed. Hard. The chain gave way with a crack that echoed through the hallway. The door swung open. Griffin stepped into the apartment and stopped breathing. It was smaller than his walk-in closet, tinier than seemed possible for 3 people to live in. But it was clean. Meticulously clean. Toys organized in a plastic bin. Dishes washed and neatly stacked. A small couch with a blanket folded precisely. Someone took pride in this space despite having nothing. And on the kitchen floor, barely visible from the doorway, lay a woman. Griffin moved quickly, his business shoes loud on the worn linoleum. Harper and Hudson stood pressed against the wall, watching him with identical pairs of huge, terrified brown eyes. They looked so small, so vulnerable. 3 years old, and facing a crisis no child should face. I'm Griffin. I'm here to help your mama. He knelt beside Rosalie, and his heart clenched. She was beautiful. Even unconscious, even clearly malnourished, she was stunning. Dark auburn hair spread across the floor. Delicate features. Skin that should have been glowing but was pale, almost translucent. Her clothes were worn but clean. Her hands showed evidence of hard work. She was young. Too young to look this exhausted. Too young to be this thin. This woman had been starving herself to keep her children alive. Griffin checked her pulse. Weak but steady. Her breathing was shallow but present. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Properly this time. I need an ambulance at Cedar Grove Apartments. 847, Cedar Grove Drive, Apartment 2F. I have an unconscious female, mid-20s, appears to be suffering from malnutrition and exhaustion. 2 small children present, ages approximately 3. The dispatcher started asking questions. Griffin answered them mechanically while his eyes stayed on Rosalie. She was freezing. He stripped off his coat and laid it over her carefully. Sir, is the patient breathing? Yes. Shallow breaths, but steady. Pulse is weak, but regular. Is she responsive to voice or touch? No response to either. Do you know how long she's been unconscious? He looked at Harper. Sweetheart, when did you find your mama like this? Just now. When we woke up. She was making breakfast, and then she was on the floor. Approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Griffin relayed to the dispatcher. Is mommy going to be okay? Hudson's small voice cut through everything. Griffin looked at the little boy clutching his nearly threadbare bear, his eyes swimming with tears, his thumb in his mouth. This child had already lost his father. He couldn't lose his mother too. Yes, Griffin said, making a promise he had no business making. Your mommy is going to be just fine. The doctors are coming to help her feel better. Are you a doctor? No. I'm just someone who wants to help. Why? Such a simple question. Why was he here? Why had he answered that call? Why was he on his knees in a stranger's apartment, making promises to children he'd never met? Because your sister called me and asked for help. And when someone asks for help, you help them. That's what good people do. The ambulance is en route, the dispatcher said. ETA 4 minutes. Stay on the line with me. Griffin heard the sirens in the distance. For minutes. He looked around the apartment, really seeing it now. The empty refrigerator he could glimpse through the open door. The stack of bills on the counter, all stamped with red warnings. The eviction notice barely hidden. The complete absence of NEF. But beyond the 2 eggs and stale bread on the counter. When did you 2 last eat? Griffin asked gently. Yesterday morning, Harper said. Mama gave us half a sandwich each. She said she already ate, but I don't think she did. She says that a lot. Griffin's jaw tightened. These babies hadn't eaten in over 24 hours. Their mother had been literally working herself to death trying to feed them. The sirens were getting louder. Griffin stood up and looked at the twins. The ambulance is almost here. They're going to take very good care of your mama. But I need to know, is there anyone else? Grandparents? Aunts or uncles? Anyone I should call? Harper shook her head. Just us. Mama says we're a team. Just the three of us. No other family at all. Daddy left when we were babies. Grandma and Grandpa live far away. We don't see them. Griffin felt something shift in his chest. Something fundamental and irreversible. These children had no one. If social services got involved, they'd be separated from their mother. Put into the system. Traumatized even further. Not on his watch. The paramedics burst through the broken door moments later, professional and efficient. Griffin stepped back to give them room, but kept himself between the medical team and the twins. Harper and Hudson pressed against his legs, instinctively seeking protection from these new strangers. Female, approximately 26 years old, the lead paramedic, a woman named Torres, rattled off as she assessed Rosalie. Signs of severe malnutrition. Possible dehydration. Blood pressure dangerously low. We need to transport immediately. Are you family? Her partner asked Griffin. Griffin looked down at Harper's small hand gripping his pants leg. Hudson had wrapped both arms around his other leg and was holding on like Griffin was the only solid thing in a tilting world. I'm their guardian, he said, the lie coming easily. I'll be accompanying them to the hospital. Torres gave him a sharp look but didn't argue. Sir, these children, are they being cared for? Have they eaten? Not in over 24 hours. Torres's expression hardened. We're going to need to call social services. No. Griffin's voice came out more forcefully than he intended. He softened it. These children are safe. They're with me. I'll ensure they're fed and cared for. Their mother has been doing everything she can under impossible circumstances. This isn't neglect. This is a woman who sacrificed everything for her children. Sir, protocol requires it. Then let me make a call. Griffin pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer. Richard, I need emergency temporary guardianship papers drawn up immediately for 2 minors. 3-year-old twins. Yes, right now. I don't care if you're in a meeting. I don't care if it's irregular. Make it happen in the next hour, or I'm finding new legal counsel. He hung up and looked at Torres. By the time you finish transport and start the paperwork, I'll have legal guardianship. These children stay with me. And who exactly are you? Griffin Calloway, CEO of Calloway Investment Group. I have resources, references, and the means to ensure these children are properly cared for while their mother recovers. I'm not some random stranger. I'm someone who cares about what happens to this family. Torres studied him for a long moment. Fine. But Mr. Calloway, social services will still be involved. This situation will be evaluated. Understood. The paramedics loaded Rosalie onto a stretcher. She looked impossibly small, impossibly fragile. Harper started crying when she saw them taking her mama away. Where are they taking her? To the hospital, Griffin said, kneeling down to Harper's level. They're going to give your mama medicine and food and rest, so she can get strong again. And we're going to follow them in my car. You, me, and Hudson. We'll be there when she wakes up. Promise? I promise. Griffin had never broken the law so casually in his life. He strapped 2 3-year-olds into the back seat of his luxury sedan with no car seats, drove well over the speed limit to the hospital, and made a series of phone calls that pulled strings he'd never pulled before. But by the time they reached Mercy General Hospital, he had temporary emergency guardianship papers being expedited, a social worker who owed him favors on standby, and his assistant Jennifer mobilizing resources. Mr. Calloway, Jennifer's voice came through his car's Bluetooth system. I have car seats being delivered to the hospital in 20 minutes. I've contacted pediatric services to have the twins examined. And I've arranged for food, clothes, and basic supplies. Thank you, Jennifer. Also, I need you to clear my schedule for the foreseeable future. Foreseeable future? Sir, you have the Matsumoto meeting tomorrow. The merger negotiations on Friday. The board presentation next week. Cancel all of it. Delegate what you can. Postpone the rest. There was a pause. Sir, may I ask what's happening? Griffin looked in the rearview mirror at Harper and Hudson. Hudson had fallen asleep despite everything, his head lolling against the car door. Harper stared out the window, her small face serious and worried. "I'm becoming a father," Griffin said quietly. Another pause. "I see. I'll handle everything." The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells, and too many people asking too many questions. Griffin kept the twins close, his hands on their small shoulders as he navigated bureaucracy with the same ruthless efficiency he used in boardrooms. "I'm assuming temporary guardianship. I have legal documentation being processed as we speak. These children will not be separated from their mother or placed in foster care. They're staying with me." The social worker, a tired-looking woman named Ms. Patterson, flipped through papers on her clipboard. "Mr. Calloway, you can't just assume responsibility for children you don't know. There are procedures, background checks, home evaluations. Then expedite them. I'll pay whatever fees are necessary. I'll submit to whatever checks you require. But these children have been through enough trauma today. They need stability and continuity, not more upheaval. Sir, I appreciate your concern, but this is highly irregular." Ms. Patterson, Griffin leaned forward, his voice dropping to the tone he used when closing difficult deals. "Those children's mother collapsed from literally starving herself to keep them fed. They found her unconscious on the kitchen floor. They haven't eaten in over a day. They have no other family. Their father abandoned them years ago. If you take them into the system right now, you will traumatize them further. Or you can let them stay with someone who has the means and the desire to care for them while their mother recovers. What serves their best interest?" Ms. Patterson looked at Harper and Hudson. They were sitting in chairs too big for them, sharing a bag of crackers a nurse had provided. They looked exhausted, scared, desperately in need of someone to make them feel safe. She sighed. 24 hours. I'll give you 24 hours while I process the emergency guardianship. But Mr. Calloway, if anything seems off, if there's any indication these children aren't safe, I will remove them immediately. Understood. Thank you. The wait was excruciating. Griffin sat in the pediatric area with Harper and Hudson, trying to keep them calm and distracted while Rosalie was being examined and treated. A nurse brought them real food. Chicken nuggets, apple slices, juice boxes. The twins ate with a focus that broke Griffin's heart. This wasn't excited children enjoying a treat. This was hungry children trying to fill empty bellies. "When was the last time you had chicken nuggets?" Griffin asked. "I don't remember," Harper said around a mouthful. "Maybe at preschool? But we don't go to preschool anymore. Mama said it cost too much." "What do you do during the day?" "Mrs. Chen watches us on Thursdays when Mama works. Other days we stay home. Mama taught us to be very quiet when she's sleeping. She sleeps a lot because she works at night." Griffin absorbed this information, each detail adding to the picture of a woman desperately trying to keep her head above water. For jobs, no childcare except 1 day a week. 3-year-olds having to entertain themselves quietly so their exhausted mother could sleep. It was impossible. The fact that Rosalie had kept it going this long was a miracle. "Do you like the chicken nuggets?" "They're really good," Hudson said. His thumb had finally come out of his mouth so he could eat. "Would you like more?" Both children nodded enthusiastically. Griffin flagged down a nurse and ordered more food. The twins ate until their small bellies were full, then sat back in their chairs looking sleepy and slightly dazed. "Mr. Griffin?" Harper asked. "Yes, sweetheart. Are you going to leave us?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay right here with you until your mama wakes up. And then I'm going to help all of you. I promise." Why? Such a simple question. Such an impossible question to answer. Because hearing your voice on the phone changed my life. Because seeing your courage made me realize I've been hiding in my success. Because your mother's sacrifice put my entire existence into perspective. Because for the first time in my adult life, I feel like I'm doing something that actually matters. Because you need help, he said instead. And I can help. And that makes it the right thing to do. Harper studied him with those two old eyes, then nodded. "Okay. Thank you for coming when I called you. Thank you for being brave enough to call." 2 hours later, a doctor approached. Dr. Shah, according to her name tag. She looked at Griffin with a mix of professional courtesy and curiosity. "Are you family of Rosalie Brooks? I'm the guardian of her children. How is she?" "Stable now. We've got her on 4 fluids and nutrition. Her blood work shows severe malnutrition, dangerously low electrolytes, and signs of chronic sleep deprivation. Her body essentially shut down from exhaustion and starvation. Another day or 2 of this, and we could have been looking at organ failure. Griffin felt sick. But she'll recover? With proper care and nutrition, yes. She'll need at least a week of rest, regular meals, and follow-up care. But there shouldn't be any permanent damage. She's young and otherwise healthy. Her body just needs time to heal. When can she see her children? She's awake now, actually, asking for them. But Mr. Calloway, I need to be clear. This woman cannot return to the situation she was in. The lifestyle that brought her to this point will kill her if it continues. She needs support. Real, substantial support. She'll have it. I'll make sure of it. Dr. Shaw studied him. I'm going to trust you on that. Room 314. But keep the visit short. She needs rest. Griffin gathered the twins. Okay, we're going to see your mama now. But she's going to look a little different. She'll be in a hospital bed with some tubes to give her medicine. It might seem scary, but it's helping her get better. Can you be brave for just a little bit longer? Both children nodded solemnly. They were already being so much braver than anyone should ask of 3-year-olds. Room 314 was at the end of a long corridor. Griffin knocked softly and pushed the door open. Rosalie was sitting up in the hospital bed, and even with 4 lines and monitors, even pale and weak, she took his breath away. Her eyes, when they met his, were the warmest brown he'd ever seen. Intelligent, wary, desperately worried. My babies, she whispered. Where are my babies? Mama. Harper and Hudson rushed forward. Griffin lifted them carefully onto the bed, one on each side of their mother. Rosalie wrapped an arm around each of them, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you were scared. Mama's okay. Mama's going to be fine. We called for help like you taught us, Harper said proudly. I dialed the phone all by myself. You did so good, baby. You were so brave. Rosalie looked over her children's heads at Griffin. Her expression was complex. Grateful. Suspicious. Overwhelmed. You must be the person they're talking about. The one who came. Griffin Calloway. And yes, I'm the one Harper called. By accident, apparently. She dialed the wrong number. Maybe not by accident, Griffin said softly. Maybe exactly the right number. Rosalie held his gaze. Mr. Calloway, I don't know how to thank you for what you did for my children. For getting them here safely. The nurse told me you stayed with them the whole time. Anyone would have done the same. No. Rosalie's voice was quiet but firm. They wouldn't have. I know how the world works when you have nothing. People look away. People judge. People call social services, and children end up in the system. You didn't do any of that. You protected them. Why? Griffin moved closer to the bed. May I sit? Rosalie nodded. He settled into the chair beside her, acutely aware of how small and vulnerable she looked in the hospital bed. How fiercely she held her children despite her weakness. I answered your daughter's call, and I heard terror and courage in the same breath. Something about that moment, something about Harper's voice, cut through every defense I've built in 43 years of life. I've spent decades accumulating success, and I couldn't tell you the last time anything felt meaningful. Then a 3-year-old girl asked me for help, and suddenly I remembered what matching actually feels like. That's very philosophical, Mr. Calloway. But forgive me if I'm suspicious of successful men who rescue struggling mothers. In my experience, there's always a price. The cynicism in her voice told him stories she hadn't spoken aloud. Griffin kept his voice gentle. The only price is that you let me help. Really help, not just emergency help. Your children told me you work for jobs. That they haven't been to preschool in months. That you barely sleep. That you haven't eaten in days. MS. Brooks, I have resources that are currently serving no purpose beyond making more money I don't need. Let me put those resources to work for your family. I can't accept charity. Then accept a job. Rosalie blinked. What? I run a charitable foundation. It's been operating on autopilot for years because I haven't had time to properly manage it. I need someone to coordinate our initiatives, manage community partnerships, and honestly, make sure we're actually helping people instead of just moving money around. It's real work. It would require real skills. But it pays well, includes full benefits, and has regular hours that would let you be home with your children every evening. Rosalie stared at him. Mr. Calloway, you don't know me. You don't know if I'm qualified for that kind of work. You're offering me a job because you feel sorry for me. I'm offering you a job because I need help and you need opportunity. Whether you're qualified, we can figure that out. But Ms. Brooks, Rosalie, anyone who can manage 4 jobs, raise twins alone, and keep a family together under circumstances that would break most people clearly has organizational skills and determination. Those are the main requirements. Rosalie was quiet for a long moment, her arms still wrapped around Harper and Hudson. Griffin could see her mind working, calculating, trying to find the trap. What about housing? The apartment we're in, I'm already behind on rent. I have an eviction notice. I own several properties. There's a townhouse about 10 minutes from my office. 3 bedrooms, fenced yard, safe neighborhood with good schools. It's been empty for 6 months. Consider it part of the compensation package. Rosalie let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. This is insane. This is too much. People don't just do this for strangers. Maybe they should, Griffin said quietly. Maybe the world would be a better place if we stopped treating compassion like a limited resource. And what do you get out of this arrangement? The chance to actually do something meaningful with my wealth. The chance to help a family that deserves every good thing. The chance to, Griffin paused, looking at the twins, maybe learn what it means to be part of something real. Rosalie studied his face for a long time. Griffin let her look. Let her see whatever she needed to see. He had nothing to hide. His motives were genuine, even if he didn't fully understand them himself. If I say yes, Harper said hesitantly, this is a job. I work for what you give us. No free rides. I'm not a charity case. Deal. And if it doesn't work out, if I'm terrible at the job or you decide this was a mistake, you tell me honestly. You don't let me fail because you feel guilty. I promise. And my children, Rosalie's voice broke slightly. If you're going to be in their lives, you have to mean it. They've already lost their father. I won't let them get attached to someone who's going to disappear when this stops being interesting. Griffin looked at Harper and Hudson. Hudson had fallen asleep against his mother's side, exhausted from the day's trauma. Harper was fighting to keep her eyes open, her small hand clutching Rosalie's hospital gown. I can't promise I'll be perfect at this. I don't know anything about being a father figure, but I can promise I won't walk away. Whatever happens between us professionally or personally, I'm committed to making sure your children are safe and cared for. That's not negotiable, and it's not temporary. Rosalie's eyes filled with tears again. Why are you really doing this? Because your daughter's call reminded me that success without purpose is just expensive emptiness. Because I'm 43 years old, and I've never felt needed before. Because looking at your family made me realize what I've been missing my entire adult life. Because, Griffin met her eyes directly, I think maybe we're supposed to help each other. How am I supposed to help you? I have nothing. You have everything I lack. You have love, purpose, the courage to sacrifice everything for people you love. You have children who look at you like you hung the moon. You've built a family with nothing but determination and love, while I've built an empire and come home to an empty penthouse every night. I think you can teach me more than I can teach you. Rosalie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. This is the craziest thing anyone's ever offered me. Is that a yes? She looked at her sleeping children, at the 4 in her arm, at the hospital room that represented how close she'd come to leaving them orphaned. At Griffin, this stranger who'd answered a wrong number and refused to walk away. Yes, we'll try it. But Mr. Calloway, I'm terrified. So am I, Griffin admitted. Maybe that means we're doing something right. Call me Griffin. If we're going to do this, let's at least be on a first-name basis. Rosalie, though I suspect you already knew that. I did. Dr. Shaw told me. How long do I have to stay here? At least a week. Your body needs serious recovery time. But that gives us time to get the townhouse ready, to set up the job, to make sure everything is in place when you're released. What about Harper and Hudson? They can't stay in a hospital for a week. They'll stay with me. I have the legal guardianship paperwork. They'll be safe and cared for. I'll bring them to visit you every day. You do that? Take care of my children for a week? Rosalie, I'd do a lot more than that if you'd let me. Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition. Understanding. The first fragile threads of trust. Rosalie was still scared. Still suspicious. But Ben. If that, Griffin could see hope beginning to bloom. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The door opened, and a nurse entered with medication. Visiting hours are ending soon. And Mrs. Brooks needs her rest. Griffin stood. We'll let you sleep. But I'll bring the twins back tomorrow morning. And Rosalie, everything is going to be okay. I promise you that. Don't make promises you can't keep. I never do. Griffin gathered the twins carefully. Harper woke up enough to kiss her mother goodnight. Hudson mumbled sleepily, and snuggled into Griffin's shoulder. As Griffin carried them out of the room, he looked back once to see Rosalie watching them with an expression of wonder and fear. The next week was organized chaos. Griffin's penthouse became unexpectedly filled with children's laughter and toys and the beautiful mess of actual life. He hired a nanny for the days he had to handle essential business, but most hours he spent with Harper and Hudson himself, teaching them, playing with them, learning what it meant to put someone else's needs before his own. They visited Rosalie every day. Griffin watched her slowly regain color and strength, watched the hollow look fade from her eyes, watched her smile more easily as her body healed and her stress decreased. He also watched her watch him with the twins, saw her surprise when he knew without asking that Hudson needed Mr. Buttons before nap time, saw her soft expression when he patiently helped Harper sound out words in picture books, saw her walls slowly, carefully beginning to lower. On the 5th day, Griffin brought her the contracts for the job and the townhouse lease. "These are real," he said, handing them over. "Read them carefully. Have a lawyer look at them if you want. Everything is exactly as I described. No hidden clauses. No strings attached." Rosalie read every word. The salary made her eyes widen. The benefits package was more comprehensive than anything she'd imagined. The townhouse lease was shockingly reasonable. "This salary is too generous for what you're asking me to do. It's market rate for the position and the city. I'm not padding it. This is what the job is worth. And the townhouse rent? Fair market value for the neighborhood and square footage. Rosalie, I'm not trying to trap you with fake generosity. I'm offering you real opportunity." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she signed. Her signature was shaky but determined. "When do I start?" "When you're fully recovered. No rushing back to work. You heal properly first. The job will be waiting." "Griffin," she said, using his first name for only the second time. "Thank you. I know I keep saying it, but I don't know what else to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just focus on getting better. Everything else, we'll figure out together." If you're feeling this story deep in your soul, if you're rooting for this unlikely family, do me a favor right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, or just say, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline." Your engagement means the world, and it helps these stories reach people who need hope. Now let's see what happens when Rosalie comes home. The day Rosalie was released from the hospital, Griffin picked her up in the same car that had raced to save her life 2 weeks earlier. But this time, Harper and Hudson were properly secured in brand new car seats. This time, Rosalie was healthy and hopeful instead of unconscious and failing. This time, they were heading toward a future instead of running from a crisis. The townhouse took her breath away. Griffin carried her bags, insisting she was still recovering and shouldn't strain herself. The twins ran ahead, already familiar with the space from the week of preparation. "Mama, look," Harper called from upstairs. "We have our own rooms, with real beds and everything." Rosalie stood in the living room, turning slowly. Furniture that was comfortable but not ostentatious. A kitchen with modern appliances and actual counter space. Windows that let in natural light. Everything clean and safe and so far removed from the cramped apartment, she'd collapsed in that it felt like a dream. "This is really ours," she whispered. "Really yours," Griffin confirmed. "For as long as you need it." "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just be here. Be present. Let yourself imagine a future where you're not constantly in survival mode." Rosalie walked through the rooms, touching surfaces like she couldn't quite believe they were real. The bathroom had a tub big enough for the twins to bathe together. The master bedroom had an attached bathroom, a luxury she'd never had. The yard had a swing set that Griffin had installed himself. "You put up a swing set?" The twins mentioned they liked swings. "And the park equipment near your old place was broken." It seemed important. Rosalie turned to look at him. This man who'd upended his life for strangers, who'd spent a week caring for her children, who'd somehow known that a swing set would mean the world to kids who'd had so little. "Griffin, what are we doing here?" "Building something," he said simply. "I don't know exactly what yet, but something that matters." Over the next month, they settled into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Rosalie started working at the foundation, discovering she had a genuine talent for coordinating services and connecting with the people they served. Griffin found himself restructuring his schedule to be home for dinner most nights. The twins started preschool again, thriving in a stable environment. And slowly, carefully, Rosalie and Griffin discovered they were falling in love. It happened in small moments. Griffin teaching the twins to ride bikes in the park, running beside them with infinite patience. Rosalie laughing at his terrible attempt at braiding Harper's hair and showing him the right way. Shared glances over the breakfast table, hands brushing while doing dishes. The electricity of sitting close on the couch after the twins were in bed. "This scares me," Rosalie admitted one evening. They were on the porch swing, stars visible above them, the sound of crickets filling the comfortable silence. "What scares you? How right this feels. How natural. What happens when you realize we're not actually interesting? That we're just regular people with regular problems?" Griffin took her hand. "Rosalie, I've had interesting my whole life. I've had glamorous and exciting and prestigious. None of it felt like this. None of it felt like home." She looked at him in the porch light, this man who'd become essential to her and her children in such a short time. "I'm terrified of needing you. Then we'll be terrified together. Because I need you too." The kiss happened naturally, inevitably. When they pulled apart, Rosalie was crying. "I swore I wouldn't let anyone in again. After Jerome left, I promised myself I'd never depend on anyone. You're not depending on me. We're depending on each other. There's a difference. And if this doesn't work? If we try and fail? What happens to Harper and Hudson?" Griffin cupped her face gently. "Rosalie, I need you to understand something. Whatever happens between us romantically, I'm committed to being part of Harper and Hudson's lives. They're my children now too, in every way that matters. That doesn't change regardless of our relationship status. You can't promise that. Watch me. I love those kids. Not because I'm with you. Because they're incredible human beings who I'm honored to know. If you decide tomorrow that you can't be with me, I'd be heartbroken, but I'd still want to be their Daddy Griffin. That's not negotiable." Rosalie searched his eyes for any sign of uncertainty or lies. Found only truth. "I'm falling in love with you," she whispered. "It's happening whether I want it to or not." "Good," Griffin said, "because I've already fallen completely." Their relationship deepened after that night. Griffin moved from the guest room to sharing Rosalie's bedroom. They became a family in truth, not just circumstance. Mornings were chaos of getting twins ready for preschool and everyone out the door. Evenings were homework help and dinner together and bedtime stories with funny voices. Weekends were park adventures and learning to be a family unit. 3 months after that first desperate phone call, Griffin proposed. He did it in the kitchen where everything had started. Not the old kitchen where Rosalie had collapsed, but their kitchen. The heart of their new home. He was making pancakes with Harper and Hudson, flour on his shirt, batter on his hands, when he suddenly got down on one knee right there on the tile floor. "Rosalie Brooks," he said, pulling a ring box from his pocket while Harper and Hudson giggled, "you saved my life by letting me save yours. You taught me what love really means. You and Harper and Hudson gave me a family when I didn't even know I was lonely. Will you marry me? Will you let me be your partner in every way? Will you build a future with me?" Rosalie looked at this man who'd answered a wrong number and refused to walk away. At her children bouncing with excitement because Daddy Griffin had already asked their permission. At the life they'd built together from the ashes of her worst day. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes to all of it. The ring was perfect. Not ostentatious, just beautiful. It fit like it had been made for her. Harper and Hudson cheered and tackled them both in a group hug that ended with everyone on the kitchen floor laughing. "We're getting married," Hudson announced to Mr. Buttons. "And I'm going to throw flowers," Harper added. "Daddy Griffin already promised." "You've been planning this," Rosalie accused affectionately. "For weeks," Griffin admitted. "I wanted it to be perfect. It is perfect. Because it's us." The wedding was planned for 2 months later, but Griffin had one more surprise. He saved it for the reception, after the simple but beautiful ceremony in the same garden where he'd first told Rosalie he loved her. "Before we celebrate," he announced to their gathered friends and family, "I have a gift for my wife." He unveiled architectural drawings. The Rosalie Brooks Community Center. Comprehensive family services. Childcare. Job training. Emergency assistance. Medical care. Counseling. Everything Rosalie had needed when she was drowning, now available for other struggling families. "It's a resource hub for single parents," Griffin explained, his arm around Rosalie's waist. "Everything you fought for alone, we're going to provide for others. And Rosalie, I'm hoping you'll agree to be its founding director." Rosalie stared at the plans, overwhelmed. "You built this for me?" I built it because of you. Because your story showed me that there are hundreds of families out there who need help. You can create the support system you wish had existed. You can save others the way I was privileged to save you." Rosalie couldn't speak through her tears. She could only nod and throw her arms around Griffin while their wedding guests applauded and Harper and Hudson danced with joy at their parents' happiness. That night, after the celebration ended and the twins were asleep and they were finally alone in their hotel room, Rosalie looked at her husband with wonder. How did a wrong number lead to this? Griffin pulled her close. Maybe it wasn't a wrong number. Maybe it was the most right number Harper could have possibly dialed. Maybe the universe knew we needed each other. Do you believe in that? Destiny? I believe in answering when someone calls for help. Everything else, we built ourselves. They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, building something beautiful from crisis and courage and unexpected love. 1 year later, the Rosalie Brooks Community Center was thriving. The Rosalie Brooks Community Center hummed with life on its first anniversary celebration. Rosalie stood in the main lobby, watching families move through the space with purpose and hope. A young mother hurried past with a toddler on her hip, heading to the job training wing. Two children laughed in the childcare area, visible through the large observation windows. A father sat in the counseling waiting area, filling out intake forms with determined concentration. This was real. This was making a difference. Rosalie still had moments where she couldn't quite believe it was her life. "Mrs. Calloway, we have the ribbon-cutting ceremony set up in the community room." Rosalie turned to see Maria Santos, the center's program coordinator. Maria had been one of their first success stories. A widow with 3 children, she'd come to them 8 months ago desperate for work. Now she was not only employed, but thriving, using her own experience to help other families navigate their crises. "Thank you, Maria. Have you seen Griffin and the twins? Mr. Calloway is in your office with Harper and Hudson. I think they're practicing their speeches for the ceremony." Rosalie smiled and headed down the hallway. Through her office window, she could see Griffin kneeling in front of the twins, both now 4 years old and growing so fast it made her heart ache. He was adjusting Hudson's clip-on tie while Harper twirled in her new dress. She paused in the doorway, just watching them. Her family, the family that had been built from a wrong number and a desperate plea and one man's willingness to answer. "Daddy Griffin," Harper was saying, "what if I forget my words?" "Then you just speak from your heart, sweetheart. Tell people what the center means to you." "It means Mama doesn't cry anymore," Harper said with the blunt honesty of 4-year-olds. Griffin's eyes met Rosalie's over the children's heads. The look that passed between them was full of shared history. Shared pain transformed into purpose. "Your mama is pretty amazing, isn't she?" "The most amazing," Hudson agreed solemnly. Rosalie entered the office, her heart full. "Are we ready for this?" Griffin stood and pulled her into his arms. The twins immediately wrapped themselves around both their parents' legs, creating the family huddle that had become their tradition before big events. "We're ready," Griffin said. "Are you?" 1 year ago, I was working 4 jobs and collapsing from exhaustion. Now I'm running a community center that's helped over 300 families. I married the most incredible man. My children are healthy and happy and safe. Ready doesn't even begin to cover it. The ceremony was beautiful. The mayor spoke about community investment and social responsibility. Local news covered the story. Donors and board members mingled with the families the center served. But the most powerful moment came when Rosalie stepped to the microphone. 1 year ago, she began, her voice steady despite the emotion. "I was a single mother working 4 jobs and still couldn't make rent. I was choosing between feeding my children and feeding myself. I always chose them. I would choose them every time. But my body couldn't sustain it. I collapsed on my kitchen floor, and my 3-year-old twins found me unconscious." The room was completely silent. Rosalie could see people leaning forward, drawn into her story. "My daughter Harper did something incredibly brave that day. She called for help. She dialed what she thought was 911, but in her panic, she dialed the wrong number. That wrong number belonged to Griffin Calloway." Rosalie looked at her husband, standing at the side of the room with Harper and Hudson. He was watching her with such love it took her breath away. Griffin didn't have to answer that call. He didn't have to come to our rescue. He didn't have to stay with my terrified children or follow us to the hospital or spend the next weeks making sure we were safe. He chose to do all of those things. And in doing so, he didn't just save my life. He showed me what my life could become. She gestured to the center around them. This building exists because Griffin understood something fundamental. My story isn't unique. There are hundreds, thousands of families out there struggling the same way I was. Single parents working multiple jobs and still falling short. Children going hungry despite their parents' best efforts. People one crisis away from complete collapse. This center is our answer to that struggle. Here, families can access childcare while they work or attend job training. They can get emergency assistance without shame. They can find counseling, medical care, community support. Everything I wished existed when I needed it most. Rosalie's voice grew stronger. In just 1 year, we've provided childcare for 217 families. We've helped 93 parents complete job training programs. We've facilitated 15 small business startups. We've connected countless families with resources they needed to thrive. But behind every one of those statistics is a story. A mother who can finally sleep at night. A father who found employment after years of struggling. Children who are safe and fed and given the chance to just be children. The applause was thunderous. Rosalie saw tears on many faces, understanding in many eyes. These were people who got it. People who understood that poverty wasn't a moral failing, but a systemic problem that required systemic solutions. After the ceremony, as the celebration continued with food and music, Rosalie found herself in conversation after conversation with families whose lives had been changed. "Mrs. Calloway, can I speak with you?" Rosalie turned to see Patricia Williams, one of their earliest clients. Patricia had arrived 8 months pregnant, recently divorced, with 2 young sons and nowhere to turn. The center had provided emergency housing assistance, helped her apply for benefits, and connected her with job training. Now Patricia worked as a medical assistant at a nearby clinic. Her sons thrived in the center's after-school program, and she was building a stable life. "Patricia, please call me Rosalie. I just wanted to thank you. Again. I know I say it every time I see you, but I need you to understand. Before I found this center, I was drowning. I had nowhere to go. My ex-husband had emptied our bank accounts. I was living in my car with my boys. I felt like the worst mother in the world." Rosalie took Patricia's hands. "You were never a bad mother. You were a mother in impossible circumstances. But you created the place where impossible became possible. You gave me more than assistance, Rosalie. You gave me hope. You gave me a path forward. My boys are happy now. They're safe. They're thriving. And I have a career, not just a job. That's because of you and Mr. Calloway." "It's because of you," Rosalie corrected gently. "We provided resources. You did the hard work. You're the hero of your story, Patricia." After Patricia walked away, Griffin appeared at Rosalie's side with 2 glasses of champagne. "You're incredible, you know that? I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me." "Exactly. That's what makes you incredible." They stood together, watching the celebration. Harper and Hudson were playing with other children in the supervised activity area. Families were laughing and eating and, for a moment, forgetting their struggles. The center was alive with hope and possibility. Griffin's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression changed. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Confusion. Something Rosalie couldn't quite name. "Everything okay?" "Yeah. Just work thing. I need to take this. I'll be right back." He walked away, the phone already pressed to his ear. Rosalie watched him go, a small knot of unease forming in her stomach. It was probably not. Ping. Griffin took business calls all the time, but something about his expression bothered her. The rest of the celebration passed in a blur of congratulations and planning discussions and media interviews. But Rosalie kept noticing Griffin slipping away to take calls, kept seeing that same odd expression on his face. By the time they got home that evening, the unease had grown into real concern. "Griffin, is something wrong?" He was helping Hudson into pajamas, a nightly routine he'd taken over completely. "No, why? You've been distracted all evening. Taking a lot of calls. Just some things coming up with the business. Nothing to worry about." But his tone was off, not quite meeting her eyes. Griffin was many things, but he'd never been a good liar. Rosalie decided not to push. Not yet, but she filed the observation away. Over the next week, Griffin's mysterious behavior intensified. He started leaving the house early in the mornings, claiming he needed to handle some projects before his regular workday. When Rosalie offered to help or asked for details, he deflected. More phone calls that he took in private. More odd expressions when he thought she wasn't looking. The twins noticed too. Why does Daddy Griffin keep talking on the phone and then looking sad? Harper asked one evening during dinner. He's not sad, sweetie. He's just busy with work. But he looks sad, Hudson insisted. That night, after the twins were asleep, Rosalie confronted Griffin directly. We need to talk about what's going on. Griffin looked up from his laptop, guilt flashing across his face before he could hide it. What do you mean? The mysterious phone calls. The early mornings. The distraction. Griffin, you're keeping something from me, and it's making me worried. Is the business in trouble? Are we in trouble? No. God. No. Rosalie, nothing like that. Then what is it? Griffin closed his laptop and took her hands. It's complicated. And I'm not trying to keep secrets from you. I'm just trying to figure some things out before I bring them to you. That doesn't make me feel better. That makes me feel like you don't trust me. It's not about trust. It's about, he paused, searching for words. It's about making sure I understand something before I tell you about it. Because once I tell you, everything might change. Rosalie felt cold fear settle in her chest. Are you leaving us? What? No. Rosalie, no, never. How could you even think that? Because that's what men do. They stay until it gets complicated or boring or hard, and then they leave. Jerome did it. I keep waiting for you to do it too. Griffin pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. I am not Jerome. I'm not leaving. What I'm dealing with is about our past, not our future. But I need a little more time to process it. Can you give me that? Can you trust me for just a little longer? Rosalie wanted to say yes. Wanted to be the trusting wife who didn't question. But years of survival had taught her to question everything. How much longer? A few more days. I promise, by the end of this week, I'll tell you everything. And Rosalie, I promise it's not bad. It's just complicated. She pulled back to look at his face, searched for lies and found only confusion and something that looked like wonder mixed with pain. Okay. A few more days. But Griffin, not knowing is killing me. I know. I'm sorry. Just trust me a little longer. 3 days later, Griffin came home early from work. The twins were at preschool. Rosalie was reviewing grant applications in the home office. He found her there, his expression serious. We need to talk. Rosalie's heart started pounding. This is it, she thought. This is where he tells me it's too hard. That we're too complicated. That he's done playing house. She closed her laptop. Okay. I'm listening. Griffin sat down across from her. He looked nervous, which was unusual. Griffin Calloway faced down corporate sharks without flinching. What could make him this unsettled? I found out something about the day Harper called me. Something I didn't know. Something that changes the story we've been telling ourselves. What do you mean? Griffin pulled out his phone and showed her an email. It was from a lawyer she didn't recognize. The subject line read, regarding the estate of Charles Calloway and specific instructions dated March 15th. Who's Charles Calloway? My grandfather. He raised me after my parents died. He passed away 8 months ago. I didn't know that. You never mentioned it. We weren't close. He was distant, cold, good at business, terrible at relationships. I thought he didn't care about anything except money and legacy. Rosalie was confused. What does this have to do with Harper's call? Griffin took a deep breath. My grandfather's lawyer contacted me last week. Apparently, there was a sealed letter in his estate, with instructions not to open it until 1 year after his death. That deadline just passed. The letter was for me. What did it say? Griffin's voice was tight with emotion. It explained that my grandfather had been watching me for years, worried about me. He could see that I was successful but empty. That I'd become exactly what he'd trained me to be, a brilliant businessman with no real human connections. It bothered him more than I realized. Rosalie's unease was growing. Griffin, what did he do? 3 years ago, my grandfather hired a private investigator. Not for corporate espionage or anything like that. He hired someone to find families in genuine need. Families with children. Families where one person was sacrificing everything to keep their loved ones safe. He wanted to find, and I'm quoting the letter here, worthy causes that might also teach my grandson what actually matters. Rosalie felt the room tilting. No. The investigator found several families fitting that description. Yours was one of them. Rosalie, my grandfather was your landlord. What? Griffin's words were coming faster now, like he needed to get them all out before he lost courage. He bought the building you lived in 18 months before you collapsed. He'd been watching your situation. He knew you were working for jobs. He knew you were struggling. The investigator provided regular updates. And Rosalie, when you fell behind on rent, when you got that eviction notice, my grandfather never intended to evict you. He was going to forgive the debt. He was already planning ways to help. This can't be real. There's more. My grandfather had a phone system set up, a service that would route certain calls directly to my private line. He gave that number to the investigator, and the investigator, acting as a social services volunteer, visited your apartment 2 weeks before you collapsed. She talked to you about emergency resources. She left a card with a phone number for you to call if you ever needed help. The card, Rosalie whispered. The woman who came by. I thought she was checking up on us. I threw the card away because I was scared it was related to child services. Harper must have seen the number before you threw it away. Or maybe she just found the card in the trash. The number on that card was specifically designed to reach me. Rosalie, the call wasn't a wrong number. It was orchestrated. Rosalie stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. She felt like she couldn't breathe. So this was all fake? You coming to save us? That was your grandfather's plan? You and me, our marriage, our family. That was all manipulation? No. Griffin stood too, reaching for her. Rosalie, please listen. The setup was orchestrated. The number, the opportunity for Harper to call me, that was my grandfather's doing. But everything after that moment was real. My grandfather couldn't have predicted that I'd fall in love with you. He couldn't have controlled my decision to stay involved. He couldn't have manufactured the connection between us. How do I know that? How do I know any of this is real and not just you following some script your grandfather laid out? Because my grandfather died 8 months ago, before we got married, before the center opened, before we built this life. He set up the initial meeting, but Rosalie, he couldn't have planned everything that came after. That was us. That was our choices. But it's still built on a lie. Still based on manipulation. Is it? Griffin's voice was desperate now. If Harper had called actual 911 that day, would emergency services have helped you? Of course. Would they have followed up after? Made sure you had housing and employment? Stayed in your life and your children's lives? Rosalie was quiet. My grandfather didn't manipulate us into loving each other. He just created an opportunity for our paths to cross. What we did with that opportunity, that was completely real. I need some space. I need to think. Rosalie, please. No. I can't do this right now. I need to process this without you here telling me what it means. Griffin's face crumpled. Okay, I'll give you space. But Rosalie, I love you. That part was never fake. Not for a single second. How am I supposed to believe that when our entire foundation is based on a setup? Because you know me. You've lived with me for over a year. You've seen me at my best and worst. You know when I'm lying and when I'm being truthful. Look at me and tell me our love isn't real. Rosalie looked at him, saw the pain and fear and desperate honesty in his eyes. Saw the man who'd spent a year showing up every single day, who'd learned to braid hair and tie tiny shoes and read the same bedtime story 80 times without complaining, who'd built her a community center and believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. But she also saw the lie underneath it all, the manipulation. The fact that their meeting hadn't been fate or chance or divine intervention. It had been a rich man's experiment. I need you to leave. Just for a few days. I need to figure out how I feel without you here. Where will I go? You have a penthouse, don't you? Go there. I'll tell the twins. I'll tell them you have a business trip. And when they ask when I'm coming home. Rosalie's voice broke. I don't know, Griffin. I honestly don't know. If this story is breaking your heart right now, if you're feeling every ounce of Rosalie's pain and confusion, I need you to stay with me. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this with someone who understands that sometimes the truth is more complicated than we want it to be. Comment and tell me, would you forgive Griffin? Would you be able to move past this revelation? Drop your thoughts below, or just say, I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. Now let's see what happens next. Griffin packed a bag with shaking hands. Rosalie stood in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed, watching him with an expression he'd never seen before. Closed off. Protected. The walls he'd spent a year carefully dismantling were back up and reinforced. What do I tell Harper and Hudson when they ask for you? Tell them I had to handle some business. Tell them I'll see them soon. Tell them, his voice cracked, tell them Daddy Griffin loves them very much. Griffin. He looked up, hope flaring in his eyes. Did you know? When you first got Harper's call, did you know about your grandfather's plan? No. I swear to you, I had no idea. I found out the same time you did. When that lawyer's email arrived, I was as shocked as you are now. But you didn't tell me right away. You kept it from me for over a week. Because I was trying to understand it myself. Because I was terrified of exactly this. Of you thinking everything we built was fake. It feels fake now. Those words hit him like a physical blow. Griffin closed his suitcase and stood there. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and moved millions with a signature, utterly helpless. I'll go. But Rosalie, I'm not giving up on us. Take all the time you need to process this. Be angry. Question everything. But know that I'll be waiting. Because you and Harper and Hudson are my family. And that's real regardless of how we found each other. He left without another word. Rosalie heard his car start. Heard him drive away. Then she collapsed on the bed and cried harder than she'd cried since the day she woke up in the hospital. The twins came home from preschool full of energy and questions. Where's Daddy Griffin? His car isn't here. He had to go on a business trip, sweetie. When's he coming back? Soon. But Harper was too perceptive. Her little face scrunched up with worry. Are you sad, Mama? Just tired, baby. Did you and Daddy Griffin have a fight? Rosalie's heart broke. Her children were 4 years old and already attuned to adult relationship dynamics because they'd lived through their father leaving. Sometimes grown-ups need space to think about important things. But it doesn't mean anyone's leaving anyone. Okay, Harper said, but she didn't sound convinced. That night, the twins insisted on calling Griffin before bed. Rosalie couldn't deny them, even though hearing his voice made her chest ache. Daddy Griffin, when are you coming home? We miss you. Griffin's voice came through the speaker, thick with emotion. I miss you too, buddy. So much. But I have to stay away for just a little bit while I finish some work. But who's going to read our bedtime story? Mama will read it tonight. And she'll do a better job than me because she actually does the voices right. Despite everything, Rosalie smiled slightly. Can you come home tomorrow? I don't know yet, sweetheart. But I promise, as soon as I can come home, I will. And Harper, Hudson, I need you both to know something. Daddy Griffin loves you very, very much. That never changes. No matter what. We love you too. After the call ended, the twins were subdued. Hudson clutched Mr. Buttons extra tight. Harper asked 3 times if Daddy Griffin was really coming back. He's coming back, Rosalie assured her, praying she wasn't lying. That night, alone in bed, Rosalie lay awake staring at the ceiling. The house felt wrong without Griffin. Too quiet. Too empty. The twins had cried themselves to sleep, confused and scared. And Rosalie was left trying to untangle her feelings. Was she angry about the manipulation? Yes, absolutely. The idea that their meeting had been orchestrated, that some investigator had been watching her struggle, that Griffin's grandfather had been pulling strings felt violating. But was the relationship itself fake? She thought about the past year. Griffin learning to be a father with no instruction manual, making mistakes and learning from them. Late-night conversations about dreams and fears. The way he looked at her like she was precious. His genuine excitement about the community center. How he'd restructured his entire life around their family. None of that could be faked. Not for a year. Not that consistently. Rosalie picked up her phone and scrolled through photos. Griffin and the twins at the park. Family dinner. Harper's first day of preschool with both parents there. Hudson's birthday party. Christmas morning. A year of memories that felt completely genuine. She found Griffin's journal on his nightstand. He'd been keeping it since they got married, a habit his therapist had suggested to help him process emotions he'd spent a lifetime suppressing. Rosalie had never read it before, respecting his privacy. But now she opened it, needing to understand. The entries were raw and honest. She flipped through pages. March 3rd, taught Hudson to tie his shoes today. It took 47 tries. My patience was tested in ways board meetings never prepared me for. But when he finally got it, the pride on his face made every frustrating moment worth it. Is this what being a father feels like? This weird mix of exhaustion and joy. April 15th, Rosalie laughed at my terrible attempt at French braiding Harper's hair. Her laugh is the best sound in the world. I would fail at braiding 1,000 times just to hear it. I'm falling more in love with her every day, and it terrifies me. What if she realizes I'm not actually good at this? What if I mess up these kids I love so much? May 22nd, Rosalie told me about the night Jerome left. How she stood in the doorway with both babies, watching his car disappear, knowing he wasn't coming back. The pain in her voice when she talked about it made me want to find him and make him understand what he threw away. But then she said something that broke me. She said, "I'm so afraid you'll leave too. I'm so afraid this is temporary. How do I prove to her this is forever when I'm still figuring out how to be the man she deserves?" June 10th. I don't know who I was before them. Before Rosalie looked at me like I matter. Before Harper called me Daddy Griffin like it was the most natural thing in the world. Before Hudson fell asleep on my chest during movie night. I was successful. I was wealthy. I was completely empty. They filled spaces in me I didn't know existed. The entries went on and on. A year of Griffin processing his transformation from isolated billionaire to devoted husband and father. Not a single word felt manipulated or false. This was a man genuinely changed by love. Rosalie closed the journal and called her best friend, Aisha. They'd met at the community center, both single mothers who'd survived impossible circumstances. "I need advice," Rosalie said when Aisha answered. She explained everything. The revelation about the grandfather. The orchestrated phone number. Griffin's week of keeping the secret. Her decision to ask him to leave. Aisha was quiet for a long moment. "Okay, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear. Go ahead. You're letting fear poison your happiness. This man has spent a year showing you exactly who he is. He's proven his love in 1,000 ways. Yes, your meeting was orchestrated. But girl, every relationship has a how we met story. Some people meet on dating apps using algorithms designed to match them. Some people are set up by friends. Your story just happens to involve a grandfather who wanted his grandson to find purpose. But it feels like a lie. Is it though? Did Griffin lie about his feelings? Did he fake caring about your children? Did he build you a community center under false pretenses? Or did a dying man create an opportunity, and then two people chose to build something real with that opportunity? Rosalie felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm scared, Aisha." "Of what?" "Of believing this is real and then losing it. Jerome left me. My parents couldn't deal with me being a struggling single mother, so they basically wrote me off. Everyone I've ever trusted has eventually left. Griffin just seems too good to be true. So finding out our beginning was manufactured feels like proof that I was right to be suspicious. Or maybe," Aisha said gently, "finding out that a grandfather loved his grandson enough to orchestrate an opportunity for happiness is proof that sometimes good things really do happen. Rosalie, you've been in survival mode so long you forgot how to just live. Griffin taught you that. Are you really going to throw that away because you're scared? What if he leaves? What if he doesn't? What if he's exactly who he's shown you he is for the past year? A man who answers desperate calls and refuses to walk away." Rosalie cried harder. "I love him so much it terrifies me." "I know. That's how you know it's real." After hanging up with Aisha, Rosalie sat in the quiet house. She thought about Harper's call that terrible morning. The panic, the fear, the desperation, and then Griffin's voice. Calm, focused, coming to save them. It didn't matter whose number Harper had dialed. What mattered? Was that Griffin had answered. He could have ignored the call, could have helped that first day and then walked away, could have provided resources without getting personally involved. But he hadn't. He'd shown up, stayed, loved them completely. Rosalie made her decision. She grabbed her keys and her phone, called the babysitter to come watch the sleeping twins, drove to Griffin's penthouse downtown for the first time ever. Griffin answered his door looking wrecked, hair disheveled, eyes red. Still in the same clothes he'd been wearing when he left. He stared at her like he couldn't quite believe she was real. "Rosalie, can I come in?" He stepped back wordlessly. The penthouse was exactly as she'd imagined. Sleek, modern, expensive, empty. She could see why he'd called it soulless. "I read your journal," she said, turning to face him. "I know that's a violation of privacy, but I needed to understand." "It's okay. Griffin, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I let fear make me push you away. I'm sorry I questioned everything instead of trusting what I already knew. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have told you immediately when I got that letter. Maybe, but I understand why you didn't. You were trying to protect me, trying to process it yourself first. And I repaid that by assuming the worst instead of giving you the benefit of the doubt you'd earned." Griffin's voice was rough with emotion. "Rosalie, I need you to understand something. I don't care how we met. I don't care if my grandfather orchestrated it, or if it was random chance, or if it was divine intervention. What I care about is that you're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Harper and Hudson gave my life meaning. I love you. Not because I'm supposed to. Not because of any manipulation. But because you're incredible and brave and everything I didn't know I needed. Rosalie crossed the space between them. I was wrong to ask you to leave. I was wrong to question us. You've been proving your love every single day for over a year. I should have trusted that. I should have trusted you. So where do we go from here? Home. Rosalie took his hands. We go home. Together. And we remember that it doesn't matter how our story started. What matters is how we choose to continue it. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Griffin, you answered a call for help. Everything that came after that was real. Our love is real. Our family is real. And I'm not letting fear take that away from us. Griffin pulled her into his arms, holding her like he'd never let go. I love you so much. I love you too. Now come home. The twins are convinced you're never coming back, and Hudson has been sleeping with your pillow. They left the penthouse together, hands intertwined. The drive home was quiet but comfortable. When they walked through the door, Griffin immediately went upstairs to check on the sleeping twins. Rosalie followed, watching from the doorway as he knelt between their beds. He kissed Harper's forehead, smoothed Hudson's hair, whispered that Daddy Griffin was home and everything was okay. When he came back to the hallway, Rosalie was smiling through tears. Welcome home. They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd almost let fear destroy what they'd built, choosing instead to trust and love. The next morning, Harper and Hudson woke to find Griffin making pancakes in the kitchen like he'd never left. Their shrieks of joy could probably be heard 3 houses away. They launched themselves at him, nearly knocking him over. You came back. I promised I would, didn't I? Over breakfast, with the twins chattering excitedly, Rosalie and Griffin shared a look. They would tell the kids the full story someday, when they were old enough to understand. But for now, what mattered was that their family was whole again. The weeks following Griffin's return brought a new depth to their relationship. They'd survived their first real crisis, confronted hard truths, chosen each other even when it would have been easier to walk away. The community center continued to thrive. More families served. More lives changed. Rosalie found purpose in every success story, seeing reflections of her own journey in each parent who walked through their doors. One afternoon, 5 years after that first desperate phone call, Rosalie stood at the center's entrance watching her twins. Now 8 years old, Harper and Hudson volunteered at the center every Saturday. Harper helped in the child care wing, reading to younger children with the same patience Griffin had shown her. Hudson organized donated toys and books, his natural organizational skills inherited from Rosalie. Beautiful, isn't it? Rosalie turned to see Griffin approaching with their 18-month-old daughter, Kennedy, on his hip. Kennedy had been a surprise, a blessing they hadn't planned but couldn't imagine life without. It's perfect. We've expanded to 5 locations now. Thousands of families served. It's incredible. It's what I wish had existed when I needed it. Now it does. Now other parents don't have to struggle the way I did. Kennedy reached for Rosalie, who took her daughter and settled her on her hip. They stood there, the 3 of them, watching Harper and Hudson work. Do you ever think about that day? Griffin asked. The collapse? Harper's call? Every day? But not with fear anymore. With gratitude. For what? For rock bottom. Because that's where I found you. I think I found you. Rosalie smiled. We found each other. However it happened, orchestrated or not, we found each other. That weekend, Harper had a school assignment that required the whole family's participation. She had to present about a hero in her life and explain why that person was heroic. Sunday evening, they all gathered in the living room while Harper practiced her presentation. She stood in front of them, her poster board covered with photos and drawings, looking serious and determined. My presentation is called The Day I Saved My Family. Griffin and Rosalie exchanged surprised glances. They'd expected her to talk about Rosalie, or maybe both parents. But Harper had her own perspective. When I was 3 years old, Harper began, reading from her carefully written notes, my mama was sick. She had been working really hard to take care of me and my brother Hudson. She worked so hard that her body got too tired. One morning, she fell down and couldn't wake up. Kennedy, sitting on the floor with blocks, looked up at the serious tone. I was really scared. Hudson was scared too. But I remembered what Mama taught me about emergencies. She said if something bad happens, call 911 and asked for help. So I climbed on a chair and got the phone. But I was shaking and I pressed the wrong numbers. Harper looked directly at Griffin, her eyes shining. But sometimes wrong numbers are right numbers. The person who answered was Griffin Calloway. And when I told him my mama wouldn't wake up, he didn't hang up on me. He didn't tell me to call someone else. He said he would help. And he did. Rosalie felt tears building. Mr. Griffin came to our apartment even though he didn't know us. He called the ambulance for Mama. He stayed with me and Hudson and made sure we weren't scared. He gave us food because we were hungry. He brought us to the hospital and stayed there even though he had important work to do. And then, Harper's voice grew stronger. He did something even more amazing. He didn't leave when the emergency was over. Griffin was openly crying now, trying to be quiet about it. Most people help during emergencies and then go back to their normal lives. But Daddy Griffin, he became part of our family. He married Mama. He adopted me and Hudson. He helped Mama build the community center where we volunteer every Saturday. He taught me to ride a bike and read bedtime stories and makes pancakes every weekend. He's my daddy in every way that matters. Harper looked at her parents, then back at her notes. My teacher asked why I think this makes him a hero. Heroes are people who help others even when it's hard. Heroes are people who don't give up. Heroes are people who see someone in trouble and decide to care. Daddy Griffin is a hero because he answered the phone when I called. He's a hero because he stayed. He's a hero because he showed me that families don't have to be born, they can be chosen. And he chose us. The room was completely silent except for muffled crying. Hudson was wiping his eyes. Rosalie was full-on sobbing. Griffin looked like he'd been emotionally demolished. Harper set down her notes and looked uncertain. Was that okay? Did I do it right? Griffin stood and crossed to his daughter, kneeling to her level. That was more than okay, sweetheart. That was perfect. But Harper, I need you to understand something. You're the hero of this story. You're the one who was brave enough to call for help. You're the one who saved your mama and your brother. I just answered the phone. But you didn't have to come. You're right. I didn't have to. But I'm so glad I did. Because that call brought me to you and Hudson and Mama. That call gave me the family I didn't know I needed. So really, Harper, you saved me too. Harper threw her arms around Griffin's neck. I'm glad I dialed the wrong number. Me too, baby. Me too. That evening, after the twins were asleep and Kennedy was in her crib, Griffin and Rosalie sat on their porch swing. It had become their thinking spot. Their talking spot. The place where they processed life together. Harper's presentation wrecked me, Griffin admitted. Me too. I had no idea she remembered so much of that day. She remembers the parts that mattered. Being scared. Calling for help. Someone answering. Griffin was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. I've been thinking about my grandfather. About his orchestration. I was angry at first, when I found out. Angry that he'd manipulated the situation. But now I think I understand what he was trying to do. What was that? He was trying to save me. Just like I saved you. He could see I was successful, but drowning in emptiness. He couldn't fix me directly because we didn't have that kind of relationship. But he could create an opportunity for me to fix myself by helping someone else. That's actually beautiful in a complicated sort of way. It is. And Rosalie, I think I need to honor that. His method was questionable, but his intention was love. He wanted me to find what he'd failed to give me himself. Purpose. Connection. Family. How do you want to honor it? I want to create a scholarship fund in his name. For children who've experienced trauma or loss. Kids like we were in different ways. Help them get therapy, education, opportunities. Turn his final gift to me into gifts for others. Rosalie leaned her head on his shoulder. That's perfect. He'd love that. Or maybe he'd think it was sentimental nonsense. I'll never really know. But it feels right. They rocked gently in the swing, listening to the crickets and the distant sound of traffic. Their neighborhood was safe and quiet. Their children were healthy and happy. Their marriage was strong. Life was good. Griffin, do you ever wonder what would have happened if Harper had dialed the right number that day? All the time. What do you think would have happened? You would have gotten help. The hospital would have treated you. Social services probably would have gotten involved. The twins might have been placed in temporary foster care while you recovered. You would have fought your way back, because that's who you are. Eventually you would have figured out a path forward, because you always do. You're a survivor. But I would still be alone. Still successful and empty. Still going through the motions of a life, without actually living. I would have missed the best thing that ever happened to me. So maybe it wasn't the wrong number after all. Maybe it was exactly the right number, just reached through an unconventional path. Rosalie tilted her face up to kiss him. I love you, Griffin Calloway. However we found each other, I'm grateful we did. I love you too. Today, tomorrow, and for all the tomorrows after that. Inside the house, Kennedy started crying. Teething again. They both stood, well-practiced parents now, and headed inside together. Their life wasn't perfect. Kids got sick. Work was stressful. Bills still needed paying. But they faced it all together, a team built from crisis and choice and unconditional love. 5 years after a desperate 3-year-old had dialed what should have been the wrong number, Rosalie Brooks Calloway understood something fundamental about life. Sometimes your darkest moments create paths to your brightest future. Sometimes falling down is necessary to find the person who'll help you stand. Sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the beginning of your best life. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to ask for help, the right person answers. Not because fate demands it, not because some elaborate plan requires it, but because in a world that can be cold and cruel, there are still people who hear desperate pleas and choose to care. Griffin had been that person for her family, and through saving them, he'd saved himself. Their love story wasn't conventional. It wasn't simple. It had been built on orchestrated circumstances and transformed by genuine choice. But it was real. It was powerful. And it was forever. Before we close this story, I need you to do something for me. If this journey touched your heart, if you believe in second chances and answered prayers and love that conquers fear, I need you to take action right now. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories and turn on notifications so you never miss these powerful narratives. Share this video with someone who needs hope, someone who's struggling, someone who needs to remember that help can come from the most unexpected places. And comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever been saved by a stranger. Or simply say, I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, so I know you're part of this community. Your engagement doesn't just help the algorithm. It helps these stories reach people who desperately need to hear them. As I close this chapter, I want to leave you with the lesson that Rosalie and Griffin learned. Your crisis doesn't define you. Your courage does. The way you ask for help matters. But more importantly, being the kind of person who answers when someone calls for help, that changes everything. Harper dialed a wrong number, but Griffin answered with an open heart. That decision, that moment of choosing compassion over convenience, transformed 5 lives completely. Rosalie found safety and love. Harper and Hudson found a father. Kennedy was born into a family built on choosing each other. And Griffin found the purpose and meaning that wealth alone could never provide. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings start with the most desperate calls. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes orchestrated meetings lead to genuine love. And sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right call. This is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that your crisis might be someone else's calling. Your desperate moment might be the opportunity someone needed to discover their purpose. Never be afraid to ask for help. And never underestimate the power of answering when someone reaches out. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, thank you. You're part of something special. A community that believes in hope, redemption, and the transformative power of love. Keep watching. Keep engaging. Keep believing that beautiful things can grow from the darkest soil. Until next time, this is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that sometimes the best love stories begin with a child's terrified voice asking a stranger for help. And sometimes, being that stranger who answers changes everyone's life forever. The phone will ring again. Will you answer?